Good morning. You will all be muted so we can hear our prelude this morning, Changes by Ari Leff, Michael Masatosik, and Michael Pollock. Thank you, David. Welcome to worship at and from Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church. We acknowledge that the land on which our church stands is part of the ancestral grounds of the Piscataway people. I am John Barr, one of the members of the Worship Associates team that works with service leaders and staff to create and produce our church services. At PBUC, we strive to be a welcoming community. We are from all over. Among us, we have a range of sexualities, of shapes and sizes, appearances and identities. We have different theologies and philosophies and differing physical and technical abilities. For our guests and visitors, welcome. If you'd like to know more about Paint Branch, please send your name and contact information to engagement@pbuc.org. Our engagement coordinator will reach out to you. We are recording this on Facebook Live and on Zoom. We also have a YouTube channel, and there's frequently a link in the chat if you want to subscribe. As I hope you can see, the worship team is actually on site today. This service is a trial run for some of the options for multi-platform services going forward, and we're very excited about that. So whatever brought you online today, we are so very glad that you've decided to share this morning with us. I have a couple of announcements this morning. The Board of Trustees will be holding a special meeting this Monday, July 19th, from 6:30 to 9:30. I'm going to assume PM. 6:30 to 7:30, thank you. To discuss our intention to pursue continued planning for multi-platform worship as we begin to resume in-person gatherings. Options for funding the needed equipment will be considered, and discussing the meeting house HVAC and options for upgrades or replacements. Visitors are welcome. The agenda and Zoom link can be found in this week's continuum. Also, today, July 18th, is Reverend Lynn's last day in our pulpit. All are invited to remain on Zoom after the service to express our appreciation and say farewell. And Reverend Lynn will now call us to worship.
Good morning. Thank you, John. So I feel like this is both my first day at the Paint Branch pulpit and my last day at the Paint Branch pulpit. It's been exciting this week to prepare for this morning and to be here with the team and to imagine all of you here with us sometime soon. My words of call to worship this morning are from Howard Thurman, a revered person in our movement who was a companion to Dr. Martin Luther King and a special person to him as well. These words call us into holy space, into quiet, into preparation for worship and for life that follows. Howard Thurman writes, "In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of the holy, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in good times or tempest, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." And now I invite you all to greet one another. So as you do that, you may unmute to say hello and wave and scroll through the pages so you don't miss anyone. There you are.
Hi,
Good
everybody.
morning. Hello.
Hi,
Good morning.
Let's greet each other.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Happy sunny day.
Hello. Good morning. Good
Hope
morning.
to see you sometime soon.
And now,
A lot of morning, everybody.
Good to see so many faces.
Morning.
very much.
Hello.
Hello.
And now, Chris McCann, our Director of Religious Education, and so much more, will light our chalice.
Good morning, my good people. It is such an honor to be able to light this chalice for all of us today. If you will stay on mute and please recite the chalice lighting words with us. We light the chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open heart, the loving hands, what was next? The open mind and the radiant spirit. Encendamos esta cáliz para celebrar el unitarismo universalismo. Esta es la iglesia de la mente abierta, de las manos amigas, del amor del corazón y del espíritu radiante. And now please join us in singing hymn number 316, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. again, I have a book called Oh No, Time to Go, and it's written and illustrated by Rebecca Dowdy. Hey, hello. I love greetings. The how are yous at happy meetings. But then it seems before you know the words goodbye, it's time to go. My Auntie Lou, she says, yoo-hoo, we have a chat, take tea for two, and when we're through, it's toodaloo, ta-ta, kiss, kiss, says Auntie Lou. Uncle Ed has a southern drawl, and when he says it, it's goodbye, y'all. It always sounds so sweet and breezy when Uncle Ed says, take it easy. When Granny comes, it's hugs and kisses, and when she goes, it's tears and misses. She says later, Gator, and makes me smile. I say, back at ya, crocodile. And some folks, when it's time to go, without a word, they tell you so. Instead, they use their hands to say they really must be on their way. Cousin Jazzy, he's one hip cat. He says, be cool, and tips his hat. Gotta split, gotta blow. See ya, man, I gotta go. Little brother's just a tot. Can't really talk, sure yells a lot. Goo goo gaga was all he'd say, till he shouted out, bye-bye, one day. There's nothing better than hanging out with Annabelle and Jake and Scout. Then supper time comes and I yell, no, I won't, I can't, don't want to go. But the worst goodbye that I can name was that awful day the movers came. There's a million ways of saying words that mean you won't be staying. But couldn't we just skip the buying? We could stay and keep on highing. Okay, I'll do it. I'll be strong, but it's really hard to say so long. I wish you didn't have to go. But for each goodbye, there's a new hello. And now John Barr will join us and give his chalice reflection.
Coming back into this space is very odd. In some ways, it's like the last year and a half didn't happen. The sign on the road is still there. The Black Lives Matter banner is still up. The turn from the southbound lane is still horrible. The parking lot has a few more weeds. The deck, it doesn't start out too bad, but as you get further onto it, you start to appreciate what the fuss is about. It's squishy. With most of the chairs in the sanctuary replaced with AV equipment, the sanctuary looks more like an art studio with a news crew camped in it than a church. But the light is the same. The Glen is very green. The air conditioning is almost keeping up with the summer sun. And the sound is exactly like I remember it. I would like to believe that a church is not a place, that it's a people, but it's a place too. This is the place where I have stood and sung, right over there, where I have cried during memorials, where I have joined with you in blessing children and teachers, where I have enjoyed so much music, where I have heard the good word about the work of justice. This is the home of my beloved community. The sights, the way that sound reflects in the room, those things bring me back to those moments. This is a space made sacred. This is a space that is the center of a community that is important to me. And I have missed that connection to that center more than I realized. And so I am afraid. Afraid that resumption of in-person worship will result in something not the same. Something that breaks the connections that naturally form the moment I walk into this hallowed hall. I want what I had so long ago back. This is, of course, impossible. Life is change. A butterfly has flapped its wings. A virus has mutated. I stand in this space hoping that the gift of connectedness returns. It will not return the same. You cannot cross the same stream twice. Maybe a radical change of scenery would help. A transformation signifying all the change since I first walked through the sanctuary door. A way to accept the difference between what was and what is coming. I can't tell you what sort of form such a transformation should take. I mean, maybe it's in a major interior remodel to create a tech control room and there'll be monitors and cameras everywhere. Or maybe we could paint the walls a new color. I do believe that we need to embrace this moment of change. The last year has forced us to make some hard decisions. What will this church, the place, and the people be like next year? Our minister, the Reverend Lynn Strauss, will lead the sharing of joys and sorrows.
Thank you, John, for taking us on the journey that we've all been on from our separate rooms and from our Zoom squares, and yet we've all been on it together. Joys and sorrows is such an important part of our worship service, such an important part of our community and our congregation. We share our joys and sorrows in many, many ways. But the moment in the service when we do so is a sacred moment that can take many forms. So like everything else, joys and sorrows are always changing. I want to thank the Pastoral Care Associates team made up of Lynn Lewison, Kathy Bartmello, and Jim Flaherty. A small but mighty team that cares for this congregation and supports the care that each of you give one another. They have been a great support to me. We have met every week, first on Zoom and now a couple times here in the sanctuary. And I am very grateful for the support they have given me as your pastoral minister for this time. So now I invite you into that moment of joys and sorrows. But before we begin writing in the chat, let us breathe together. Please sit comfortably wherever you are. Feel your presence upon this earth, the air above, the earth below. Feel into your body the beating of your heart, the mystery of your soul energy, the mind that remembers. Be present. For as we gather in worship today as every day, we are carrying life's hurts and joys. Sometimes the sharing in community is of our significant life experiences and milestones. And the sharing of them helps strengthen the bonds between us and helps ease our burdens. I invite you now to share your joys and sorrows in the chat while we listen to the intonation played by Keith Miller, Crystal Silence, composed and performed by Chuck Corea, most often in a duet with the vibraphone player Gary Burton. This is a very meaningful piece for me, and I'm so glad that I was able to hear it rehearsed this morning when I came into the sanctuary. Keith? Music helps us all be more centered, more present. Music helps us and reminds us to breathe. We acknowledge all that has been shared of our joys and sorrows, as well as those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken, yet are on our minds and in our hearts. We know all the grieving of this year will continue, and we will be there for one another. In this quiet time, may our hearts open to hope and healing. May our minds open to hope and possibility. Let us share a moment of silence. May we hold these thoughts, these needs, these joys, and this hope with one another in love and kindness, so that this congregation may continue to be a source of comfort and strength, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead. And now it is with joy that I introduce Elizabeth Porter, who is here in the meeting house in the sanctuary with our worship team this morning. She will sing Come Sunday, written and composed by Duke Ellington, a hymn that is in our gray hymn book, but often overlooked. Come Sunday.
Come Sunday, oh come Sunday, that's the day. Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through. I believe that God put sun and moon up in the sky. I don't mind the gray skies, 'cause they're just clouds passing by. Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through. Heaven is a goodness time, a brighter light on high. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and have a brighter by and by. Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I hope you can feel the applause, the wild and deep appreciation for sharing that beautiful music with us. Many times at the end of a sermon, ministers will say, "May it be so." And lay people who give reflections have been learning to say it as well. May it be so. And so I think about what it is I wish to leave with you. Saying goodbye is hard. We've all done it, we know that. And this week I searched for the words to meet this moment. I have felt a bit lost, everything changing so fast. And I wonder, what is this moment teaching us? I turn to the poets, as I so often do, especially to Annie Dillard. I think of her as a friend. Maybe you have poets like that in your life. An excerpt from Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. She writes, "The secret of seeing is then the pearl of great price. If I thought he could teach me to find it and keep it forever, I would stagger barefoot across 100 deserts after any lunatic at all. But although the pearl may be found, it may not be sought. The literature of illumination reveals this above all. Although it comes to those who wait, it is always, even to the most practiced and adept, a gift and a total surprise." She goes on, "I cannot cause light. The most I can do is try to put myself in the path of its beam. It is possible in deep space to sail on solar wind. Light, be it particle or wave, has force. You rig a giant sail and go. The secret of seeing is to sail on solar wind. Hone and spread your spirit till you yourself are a sail, wetted, translucent, broadside to the merest puff." Thus ends the poem. Seeing, the poet says, is the pearl of great price. And the secret of seeing, to sail on solar wind. Sounds easy, sounds fun. To hone and spread your spirit, is that not what we try and do in religious community until you yourself are a sail? What can be revealed when you surrender to that something larger than yourself? Can I become a sail, become illumined? Religion, like poetry, like life, is part truth and part mystery. What do we want from this life? What do we seek or hope will find us? We are here in religious community or there in religious community or everywhere in religious community, week after week, waiting, however impatiently. We are here waiting to be found. What do you seek? What will find you? What do you hope will find you? Goodness, forgiveness, holiness, understanding, the eyes to see, the ears to hear, that for which there are no words, a path that is righteous, a joy for being alive. Can we be found by holy light? There are times in my life when I have felt found. I have been lost and I have been found. Think of such times in your own life. You have been lost, you have been found. Certainly my call to ministry was one of those found times, and I could tell you my story in several ways, which I'm going to do as an example of how you might tell your story. And maybe you have one way of telling it, You know, when my father died, it took me a long time to let go of the old story and begin to understand and receive a new story, a new way, a new narrative. So I could tell you my call story in several ways. I had been an active Methodist youth. I had always escaped into books and into beautiful, inspiring spaces, especially churches. I had always cared for children. I had taught school, been a counselor, loved to write, and I was committed deeply to the spiritual practice of parenting. I had always been socially active, and I married a social activist. I loved hymns. All this led me one day to realize a call to ministry. Or I could tell this story another way. A truer way. I was standing on a very small sandy beach on the far shore of an island in Lake Michigan. My 4 children and my husband were back at the guest house. I was alone, a rarity. I was alone under a blue sky, and I began writing in the sand with a stick I found. And I began to imagine that a plane might fly over and read what I had just written. I was in a contemplative mood. I was reflecting on the future, which was years away, on the future when my children would all leave home. And I felt deeply in that moment, I actually felt the pain and regret that I knew I would feel. And then I also knew that I would need good, important work to do when my parenting work was over. And in that moment, I knew I was called to ministry, to seminary, to a life of devotion. You know, all ministers have a moment when they felt the call. So be sure and ask any minister you meet about their call story. And among yourselves, as lay volunteers or church music directors or religious educators or teachers or therapists or nurses or organizers or scientists or builders or artists or parents, don't we all have a called story? When were you found by the Spirit? When were you transformed by love into service or craft? When did you know what to do with your one precious life, as Mary Oliver calls us to do? Certainly those call stories are part of why we are all here together as part of Paint Branch, and why you have chosen Unitarian Universalism and this religious community to share your stories. When we speak of religion and spirituality, we also speak of being connected to something larger than ourselves. That can mean different things to each of us. Often, that is what we mean when we say community. We're not talking just about the coffee hour. We're talking about being connected to something larger than ourselves. About coming for a connection that holds the potential of touching us in a place of longing, that pearl of great price, the holy. There is power not of my own making, but of which I am a part. Dillard speaks of the act of seeing in a new way, of being in the world in a new way, a way of soul. Liberal religion is unique in its embrace of 2 things: the power and constant of change, and direct experience of the holy. In its founding in 17th and 18th century, and in its reform period in the 19th century among the Transcendentalists, Unitarian and Universalism challenged the conformity of Christianity. Orthodox Christianity was tied to doctrines and creeds and the intercession of a priest or a minister to reach the holy. Access to the divine depended on obedience to doctrines and rituals which never changed, and also depended on the authority of the ordained. Unitarians risked much to live their belief that each person can have a direct experience of the divine, of a loving God, of something larger than ourselves. Our forefathers and foremothers in the faith dedicated their lives and in some cases gave their lives and their ministries so that we might inherit a free faith. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Why should not we also enjoy an original relationship to the universe?" Good quote. An original relationship to the universe. So should we not be asking one another, how is your spirit today? Have you experienced the universe, the mystery, the light lately? Do you have a story of holiness to share? Where do you see God at work in the world? To practice our free faith, our churches and meeting houses must teach how to surrender to experiences of the holy in our lives and how to name and witness to those experiences. At the annual meeting of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association this year on Zoom, the Berry Street lecture was given by retiring co-ministers Rob and Jan Eller Isaac, a very prominent ministry and history, two wonderful people who spoke of their long struggle to share their ministry and their marriage. They spoke of what it means to do a shared ministry in and with a congregation. And a shared ministry is what we all do. Jane defined the purpose of congregations this way. She wrote, "Vital religious communities grounded in experiences of the holy, sustained by personal practice and rituals of confession, lamentation, and covenant, provide a framework for love and justice to take hold in the world." She spoke of spiritual activism. When I came first into ministry in the early 90s, I spent a fair amount of time talking about the link between spirituality and social action. They were never separated. They have always been one thing, but somehow we were living them as if they were two different things, two different kinds of people, the social justice crowd and the spirituality crowd. But now we know they are one. The intersection of spiritual development and positive social change, spiritual activism. We've come a long way from the radical humanism of the middle and late 20th centuries practices. We now know that we liberals can actually live a religious life. I often get annoyed when I read in the paper these letters and essays and opinions that seem to think that all people who are religious are somehow moderate conservatives. You know, we need to get our message out there. As Howard Thurman, Christian theologian and writer, says, begin within. Only then can we be fully and compassionately present with others and with the suffering of the world. The work of the liberal church, your work, is to find God or the holy in the world through collective spiritual experience and devotional practice. Organize and change through loving. And none of us can do this alone. Ministry and congregational deepening can only be done in loving community and shared commitment. My spiritual practice is preparing for church, caring for family, congregation, and the larger world. I love the work of saving lives, for transformation of souls does save lives, yours and mine. Jan Eller Isaac writes of her spiritual practice, "Practice fills my life with wonder, encourages me to honor my embodied experience, to touch the depths of sorrow and joy, to take risks, to learn from my mistakes, and open myself up to be held and accompanied by a larger love." I want for each of you to explore the universe of the holy, to find in each day beauty and truth that you can call divine. I want for you courage and grace in your loving. I want for Paint Branch the sole work of blessing the world. That is the promise before you. The gift of our faith, that each of us have access to experiences of the holy. There is a universe of possibilities before us every day. Pause, rest, open yourself to all that you can be. Listen and see with new ears and new eyes, and know you are beloved, and that your compassion and love can help heal the world. Now is the time to which Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church is called. Now is the time to begin within, to hone and spread your spirit, as Dillard says, until you yourself are a sail. If I could give you one brief mantra to pass among yourselves, I give you these 3 words. Keep it spiritual. Keep it spiritual. There's so much work to do. Keep it spiritual. There's so much that needs to be fixed. Keep it spiritual. There's so much you want to know about one another. Keep it spiritual. What might be revealed as you surrender to that something larger than yourself, as you take flight on the solar wind? I pray that you will be found by the mystery and power of radiant love. May it be so. I have so much gratitude for the short time I've been with you all, and especially for the board and the staff and the associates, both worship and pastoral care. I have felt so supported. And now I am thrilled to have you look at a video that your next minister, Reverend Ann, and I made together here in the sanctuary on whatever day it was, Friday, I guess, a handoff ritual that we had fun doing together.
Ireland. It is wonderful to have you here. I offer you the right hand of fellowship and the enthusiasm of the Paint Branch congregation, who are so glad you're here.
Thank you, Lynn. It is just so good to be here, especially in this beautiful space as we mark this transition in the life of this community. And I'm grateful to have this opportunity to intentionally pass the pulpit from your ministry to mine.
Well, I imagine lifting the pulpit and handing it to you, but it's really heavy, and it's heavy in more ways than one. And so I too am glad that we're doing a ritual of transition. I think that's a very wonderful feeling to know that the congregation is being put yet again in good hands.
Yeah. So I do have a question for you, maybe 2. So your ministry here has not been very long, but it seems like it's been a very productive time. And I wonder if there is something that you'd like to lift up as a particular accomplishment during your time here.
Well, you know, the ministry is shared between congregation, members, lay folks, and ministers, and I have felt very warmly welcomed. I have felt the flexibility of the congregation as they try new things, as they continue to be energized and moving forward. So I think that they really, really embraced me. And I think if there's an accomplishment in relationship, which ministry is, just the embracing, the mutual embracing.
Are there any, as you look forward into the next ministry, are there any particular challenges that you would like to lift up?
Challenges for them, perhaps?
For this congregation,
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think like so many things, a strength is both a strength and a challenge. And I think their enthusiasm is perhaps that, because they want to keep moving very quickly. And at times I was trying to, let's pause, let's have contemplation, let's breathe. And there was always the next thing to rush toward. So I think that's fitting in the transition of this kind. But I would say that the challenge is to slow down a little and feel more peaceful. That's what I would like for them.
Sounds good.
So shared ministry is their strength, and welcoming contemplation is their challenge.
Okay.
What might you like them to know about your ministry style?
My ministry style. So my ministry is definitely shared ministry. I am the minister, but we are doing ministry. And in that collaboration, part of my role, I think, is to ask questions at least as much as I offer answers. And I take that seriously. I really do that. I try to do that. And I also have ideas and opinions that are sometimes helpful. So I hold those in tension. And I think, one thing about my ministry style is to try to hold those in tension, which we're all doing. But it's just something that I'm intentional about, I guess.
That makes a lot of sense. Sounds
so you'll see both, I guess that's what I'm saying.
That's great.
All right.
So now we want to do a little bit of a ritual.
Yeah.
And so maybe we could start with a kind of breath and silence and call upon the presence of the holy, the spirit of life, the spirit of love. And so together, as colleagues, as ministers of this congregation for this moment, we offer blessings to all who come to gather in faith with the Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist congregation.
Together, we offer blessings of peace and grace in the months and years ahead. Reverend Lynn, as your ministry with Paint Branch comes to an end, I want to acknowledge and thank you for the work that you did in the time that you were here and all the ways that you cared for this congregation. I am grateful for this time of transition with you. I'm grateful to be following your ministry starting on August 1st. You have been a blessing to Paint Branch, and I wish you all the best in whatever is next for you.
Thank you, Ann. Reverend Ann, I am glad you are here, and I appreciate this opportunity to stand together in service and care of Paint Branch. I am confident that you will lead this congregation into a deeply meaningful and vibrant future. It will be fun to watch. To further this transition to developmental ministry, to further this transition from one minister to another, I will be stepping back from all contact with members of this congregation beginning August 1st. And as a symbol of this changing ministry, the gift that passes from my heart and from my head to yours is the congregation in all of its forms. In the past, the ancestors who were the founders, on into the future of the children and grandchildren who aren't yet here, and all the visitors and new members yet to come. I pass all of this on to you with love and hope and a sense of strong ministry.
May courageous love guide this beloved community and all who enter here. Reverend Lynn, I accept this gift with hope and with humility. May Paint Branch always be blessed with a spirit of courageous love.
May it be so. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe.
Please join in singing our next hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. mission of this church, the work and the expenses, carry on in these times of transformation. We are so very grateful to have the financial support of our members and friends. Please give as generously as you are able. The instructions are in your order of service. The offertory today is Rachmaninoff's Prelude to Opus 23, number 6.
Our closing words are a brief poem by Reverend Teresa Soto. I love you when I cannot reach you. I love you still. I love you with all the will I possess. You must hold steady. There will be an after in which we will emerge to open wide the doors of the houses of love. And now I invite everyone in your home or wherever, if you wish to stand together and imagine holding hands with one another in this space. Let us sing together, Spirit of Life.
profound. We now extinguish our chalice. And as we do, let's remember to take the flame of love, hope, and justice inside of each one of us.